There's definitely a handful of reasons why you would buy a 360 camera. They obviously have an extremely unique look. They're incredible for capturing action sports. And in today's video, we're going to talk about 3 specific reasons why I would pick this camera over any other 360 camera and possibly any other action camera. DJI just entered the 360 game, and I think they've done a really good job. They've got a few great things on the spec sheet list, but the things that separate this from its competitors are pretty significant, and that's what we're going to talk about a little later in the video. So what is so great about the Osmo 360 camera that might set it apart? To start, the sensor on the inside is now a 1-inch square sensor. The 1-inch sensor is actually using the entire part of the screen to capture more light. It just means more details, whereas your average video is kind of shaped like this, and then it's cropping in, so it's not maximizing the most amount of screen. Whereas the now Osmo 360 with its brand new 1-inch sensor is capturing a lot more detail and making that 8K video look really crisp. An interesting point there too is Apple's now just released their new phones, and they've also started integrating these square sensors into the front of their cameras. So this is really interesting technology, and I'm super interested to see where cameras go with integrating more space on the top and bottom and the sensor sizes maybe changing. I think this is really intuitive design. Now, typically when you're using a 360 camera, you tend to mount it somewhere and kind of forget about it. You hit run and then you can go and capture whatever details all around you. So you want really decent battery life. This camera promotes that it has 110 minutes of battery life recording at 8K. So that's pretty fantastic. As well, if you get the adventure combo, it comes with this kind of battery pack here, which comes with 2 extra batteries, which is pretty slick. And again, I've actually charged this once, been doing a lot of testing with it, and I haven't even had to use any of these yet. So the battery life is pretty good so far, but if you're someone that's gonna be a heavy action camera user, then I do suggest maybe getting the adventure combo and you'll get more batteries. The next thing that they've done in here that I think is really clever, and honestly it's really just helpful, is they have internal storage built in to the Osmo 360. You don't have to go out and buy an additional little micro SD card. I find that I'm always swapping it from my drone to my action cameras and into the 360 camera, but you don't have to do that anymore because you don't need to buy one for this. Now, it's really great that out of the box this thing is impressive, but what actually differentiates this from one of the other action cameras or 360 cameras that you could buy on the market? For me, the first and most important change that they've done in this camera is they now offer us 10-bit color. As someone that creates high quality content for my clients, for my YouTube, for all those things, I want the best color depth possible. So now that they offer us D-Log-M with 10-bit, this makes a huge difference. You're able to get more dynamic range and more color depth out of this camera than you have in any other 360 camera, and then the next feature separates it from almost any other action camera. The second thing that I absolutely love about this that separates it for me is that you can now attach DJI microphones to this camera wirelessly. So if you don't have the microphone attached to the action camera right now, you're probably not able to hear a whole lot of what I'm saying. So this to me is one of the absolute game-changing features of this camera, is that you can now put mics to it, because you can't really hear me when I'm all the way back here. And with a couple flicks of a switch and syncing up your microphones, you can now be as far away as you want. I mean, within limitations of these microphones, and you can get back to doing what you were doing. I don't know many other action cameras that can do this. Do you? It'll do better, hopefully, than the natural microphones on board do. But you gotta be the judge of that. Is the wind coming in? Is it not? Let's go find a nice trail and see how it goes. So I probably should have got a much better mounting system for the camera before this ride. I'm using a pretty old small rig system at the moment. Not really the best. So here we're going 30 kilometers per hour. The wind noise probably isn't great. We do have the wind socket on there. Let me know what you think. The third thing that I love about this, I am someone who has been using DJI products for quite some time. So I've purchased the mics, I've purchased drones, I've purchased gimbals, and I use them all a lot. And so I really enjoy the DJI ecosystem. And to me, that is the third draw for me, is that the ecosystem is pretty well built. The DJI Mimo app is familiar. It's really simple to use. DJI isn't behind in knowing how to create high quality software that works. So it's pretty intuitive when you get into the app, knowing how to maybe color grade your flat footage or add tracking features or any of those things when you're inside of the app to utilize the 360 camera to its highest potential. The competitors do have maybe a more developed app at this point that offer different features, and we're actually going to make a whole video on comparing the Osmo 360 to the Insta360 X5 because I want you guys to really be able to make an educated decision on your purchase. Now, the Adventure Combo did also come with a few things like this nice cap for covering your camera. And something that's important about this, and something that is obviously a differentiating feature from this to the Insta360s, for example, you cannot change out the lenses on this camera. That's a feature saved just for the X5 at this point. But again, as an avid DJI user, I just got the DJI Care on this so that if anything happens, I know I just have to pay a small fee and I can get this camera back up and running again. The Adventure Combo, you also get the invisible selfie stick, which is awesome, and you can mount it really easy using this magnetic clamp that they send with it. I really actually have enjoyed this because obviously it's standard invisible stick, but if you wanted to go into selfie mode, you can actually twist this and point it towards you. When you just turn this into single lens mode, it just becomes an action camera similar to every other action camera, but you still have the ability to do 360 if you want. So this way it saves you a bit of time if you don't want to do a ton of post-processing work. You can just use the one lens, still sync up your microphone, and now you've got a pretty powerful action camera. One thing I just figured out is that you do need to switch all of your manual settings back to whatever you maybe were using in pro mode. Those settings don't transfer over when you're using the full 360 camera mode. Make sure to go back in and change to the best color profiles and those kinds of things because they don't stay the same when you move over to single lens. For someone like me who likes mounting cameras on cars, there's a nice little quarter mount thread there so that I can mount this onto my car mounts, put this outside the car and get really interesting and creative shots. I think for someone who does like doing automotive car content, this could actually be a really interesting option for shooting interiors of cars if you're doing car reviews or anything like that. I find this to be a really interesting thing because you can be here, a passenger with me in the car, but you can also see out the car all in one shot. I think for automotive content creators, that does give you a bit of an advantage if you're looking at buying an action camera and you've only got the budget for just one. I think something that's interesting to consider when you're looking at buying a 360 camera like the Osmo 360 is the advantages that you gain in being able to just turn this on, start shooting and not think about the angles because you know in post-production you can turn this wherever you want. The trade-off of being able to do that is that post-production, you do have a little bit more work that you have to do. You do have to go in and choose your angles, track a subject, come up with creative edits, flips, whatever you want to do, but there is post-processing involved. This is a tool that does something extremely unique that no other camera can do, but there is some post-processing that you have to do. So it's an 8K sensor with 4K on either side. When you are exporting, you will only have 4K export available. An additional feature, if you like shooting photos with your action cameras, this shoots with 120 megapixel photos in its full 360 photo mode. I personally don't really shoot photos with action cameras. I tend to use my nice cameras or my iPhone as it's just kind of more natural for me. But if it's something you want to do, you absolutely can. So in my opinion, DJI has nailed all the basics that we really need from a 360 camera, but it's also excelled and brought 360 cameras to the next level of where they should be to be a really great version of a 360 camera, but also a really great version of an action camera. Having 10-bit color is a game changer and it's actually making it usable for content creators like you and I. Having microphones that you can connect to your action camera really does make this more usable out in the real world. You don't have to stand right next to your camera and talk into the microphone like this. And knowing that this is the first iteration of DJI's Osmo 360, well, it can get you excited about where they can even take this even further. So I love what DJI is doing to add more competition into this space. Definitely recommend checking this out if you're in the market for an action camera or 360 camera. This thing can do a lot. I feel like I'm jousting. Ha! Whoa! How fun is that?